Hey, hey, Calvin Allen here. Hope you all are having a fantastic day. So, I wanted to talk briefly about Logic Pro X. So, this is a very important tool that we use at Greenbrier Church because this is our online audio. Everything people hear online is coming from Pro Presenter if it's a video, but all the live worship and the message, everybody mics and everything that is coming through Logic Pro X. So here it is. So this is this past Sunday. This is what it sounds like online for the most part. Added a little bit of reverb because there wasn't much. So as we are having our service, we are multi-track recording in Logic Pro. This is helpful for a couple of things, or mainly one. Let's say it's a new song that we kind of have our own feel. I mean, in the reality, we're not going to sound like Phil Wickham completely. It's going to sound a little bit more like us in some ways. And to help make things easier for people that are on the worship team and they want to rehearse and practice at home, they can listen to a multi-track recorded version of this song. So let's say we did the song for the first time, we multi-track recorded it, I'm able to mix it in post, and then we have a version of that song that we do, so that way when people are rehearsing, they're practicing what we're actually going to most likely do at our rehearsal and on Sunday morning. Another benefit from recording and using this audio for online is we can completely make it separate. It's completely separate from the soundboard audio that we are using on our Midas M32. So with this, it's connected to the M32. The only thing that it can affect is the gain from the soundboard will affect how loud a mic or something is coming through over here. But outside of gain staging on the soundboard, nothing else from the soundboard is affecting this. This is basically a direct in from the soundboard or from the sound card attached to the soundboard coming into Logic Pro. And it's great because you can completely mix differently for online than you would in-house. There's a lot of acoustic stuff, live drums in the room, and lots of noise, lots of din in the room that you kind of have to work with, whereas online it's completely different. Completely different. It's a vacuum. You create the sound that is going online. You have full control with the sound that you have online. So in-house, you have reverb and it's rocking and rolling, but maybe you don't need a whole lot because the room's a big, echoey, reverby room. But online, we don't have those natural acoustics. We don't have sound bouncing around or filling up this cavernous room. So it's going to sound really dry. So you want to boost that reverb probably. You just have to think you're in a vacuum when you're recording, when you're mixing and building your online audio from Logic or from anything really, because it doesn't have all that acoustic stuff. It doesn't have the acoustics of the room, the walls, the people's bodies, absorbing sound, all those things. That does not exist online. So you want to mix accordingly. You want to try to give it a live feel, like the people that are tuning in online are in the room with you. So you'll want to add reverb and different things. Sometimes we haven't yet, but it'd be a great idea. A lot of people will have a room mic. That's also one of the tracks recording that will kind of give the acoustics, the ambience, the congregation actually. They're clapping and they're singing out a little bit. A lot of churches and venues will have shotgun mics that will be aimed at the congregation or audience, and that gives you more of the we're all in this together feel. It feels like you're in the room because you're hearing other people as well as the band, and you're also picking up the acoustics and ambience and the natural reverb of the room, which is really cool. And hey, people at Greenbrier, that'd be a great idea to do maybe someday. But anyways, just wanted to remind you guys, in a previous video I talked about a little bit, but when we are wanting the audio from this, we need everything to be record enabled. So when it's blinking like this, that means it's record enabled. And unless you have a choir and a cajon and all that stuff, you're not going to need to have these down here record enabled. But for a typical Sunday morning from channel 1 to 19, you're going to want to make sure that they are all record enabled. So that way you get everything in there. As you can see, I'm actually doing the audio for my mic right now through here. So if I turn the record enable off, you didn't hear me at all because I was not record enabled. So that will be the same case for people online. If these aren't record enabled, they're not going to hear nothing online. And that's not good. So make sure these are all red, they're blinking, and when you're actually recording, they're going to be a solid R, a solid red, all that good stuff. So that way they can hear this instead of absolute silence. That wouldn't be good. So all the channels in here, we got the drums over here. We have them kind of in a subgroup right here. That's helpful so you can see the overall loudness in decibels that is coming through the meter for that group. Something that you want to do is obviously mix, and you want to look at the meters over here, these little green things. They help you see what's up. They're helping you see how loud things are, and it helps you see where you want to place instruments and vocals, everything, so that way you can hear what you need to hear and where you need to hear it. So you want to do some panning. As you can see, there's some panning here and on vocals and whatnot. And then we have, if I pull this up a little bit, you'll want to play around with, once you're more comfortable utilizing this, with the effects on here. You can't go overboard. The more effects that you have on here, especially as you're multi-track recording and using this for your online audio, it can create a lot of latency if you're not careful. So you probably want to use stock plugins. That's basically what we're using right now, except for one, the Waves Tune. That's not a stock plugin, but pretty much everything else is a stock plugin, unless you buy a plugin that is very low latency and low CPU and RAM usage, so that way you could use it for a live multi-track recording stream. But you just want to structure everything accordingly so you can hear what you need to hear, add some reverb here, a limiter here, all that good stuff, and then you'll be able to rock and roll. But you won't hear anything if it's not record enabled. So record enable. All right, so that's basically all you really need to know. You need to make sure it's record enabled, everything's at the correct volume. You want to make sure that obviously the stereo out's where it needs to be and that it's not muted or something weird. You also have to make sure that you know where everything is from the sound card. So the sound card is going from 1 to 32. So you have 32 inputs that you can bring in here from the soundboard, the M32. With the keyboards and some other things, mainly the keyboards, they're in stereo. So instead of it being a single channel, it's actually 2 channels paired. But pretty much everything else is a single mono signal channel coming in for you. With these stereo channels, though, they are on an aux in from the soundboard, so they're not necessarily in the actual order that they would normally be if they were going into the preamps on that soundboard. So it kind of mixed. To be able to utilize those, I had to change the card settings on the M32 on that last row of channels. I believe it's 25 through 32 or 27 through 32, whatever it is. What is that first one? Yeah, 25 through 32. So that first one is going to have the synth and all that. You see, it's 25 and 26, and then 27, 28. So you want to make sure that you're feeding from the right spot on the soundboard, so that way it's coming in. Other things you need to make sure is that they're in the right spot. Everything else is in the correct preamp channel, input channel to the soundboard. So it's all good here. But you see all the numbers. Just you got to make sure it's the right input, because if it's not the right input, then it creates a little bit more latency. But if you make it lower, it reduces the latency, but it creates a lot of potential hiccups. The internal drive, the disk or solid state, might not be able to handle all of this, and it might say disk is too slow, and you could have problems for your online people. So this is a good spot, but you can experiment. It's a pretty beefy Mac tower that you're utilizing, so maybe hear it for yourself. But I feel like sometimes I'll hear some popping or increase weird popping noises if I have it at a lower buffer size. So 512 has been a pretty good sweet spot for us. You want to make sure that the input is the DN32. That is the sound card that is connected to our M32 that is bringing the audio to this right here. Output, you want it there as well for a couple of reasons. So in and out, you see this output right here is going to 31 and 32. For the audio engineer, the guy running sound on Sundays, if they need to hear the online audio on the actual channels 31 and 32 on the soundboard, they can go to it and listen to this audio coming out, so they can hear just the online audio when you press the solo button on the soundboard, of course. So when you're soloed, you can just hear the online to see how it sounds, and if you need to tweak things, which you would be able to do it from the soundboard. Well, not from the soundboard, but from the iPad that you would have next to you. It's a soundboard that has the Logic Pro X tablet app on the iPad. This is mirroring, because this is mirroring the stereo out channel for 1 and 2. Typical stereo, or stereo, is always going to be the 1 and 2. Channel 1 and channel 2 are always going to be stereo. The reason why I'm using mirror and having to output 31 through 32 is because going back to the soundboard, I can't use channel 1 and 2 to bring the sound to, because that's where our kick drum and our snare drum reside on that. So we don't want to do that. Sorry, I probably skipped a little bit. My screens are going a little wonky for some reason, but I think we're back now. Anyways, so like I said, that's why it's on the mirroring mode, because it's mirroring output 1 and output 2. But it's saying here it's 31 and 32. So you're sending that stereo channel 1 and 2 out through 31 and 32. But we still have 1 and 2 set up in the mirror, because we need it for loopback, which is bringing the audio in from Logic, as you can see these meters, and it's going to Pro Presenter. As you can see, the meter is working once I turn this on over here, and the inputs, hey look, it's our DAW, and we're turning it on. And now over here you see the meters, hey, check. So it goes, it's coming from this, which is coming from this. But this is utilizing the stereo channel of an application that you're pulling from. So because it's using the stereo channel, again, I said earlier, channel 1 and channel 2, you have to make sure that this is still sending out original stereo 1 and 2. So that way, loopback can send it to Pro Presenter 7. So any hiccups, if you're not hearing sound, you kind of want to go through that chain. You want to make sure you're on the right outputs, you have the correct inputs, that you're record enabled, that everything's on externally from this computer for the soundboard and on the stage. All the instruments are working and those cables are working. So that way everything comes in here correctly. So that way there is no problem, no issue. And then you'll just be living your best life. All right, so that is the basic gist of how we utilize Logic Pro. It's an amazing app. It's an amazing DAW. I use it at home for recording as well because it's great. So, as always, you're awesome. Thanks for watching this video. Remember, God is for you, and He loves you, and He wants you to have the best, which is Him. So surrender to Him. Be hidden in Him. Yield to Him, because that's the best place you can be. So choose Him today. All right, bye.